Ebb and flow inspires persistence and determination during the rhythmical patterns of decline and regrowth in life. Each episode, I bring on an inspiring and influential voices who are here to help us stand strong and walk through the ebb moments of life and propel us to the peak of our health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, so we can live our life in the flow, individually and collectively. This includes strategies, habits, routines, focus tricks, questions, and much more that we can use to live our life in the best way in order to maximize our service to others. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you're as excited for the Ebb and Flow podcast as I am, but to make sure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe now on any stream, check out YouTube, or visit solomonezra.com to learn more. This episode is from a virtual speech I gave on Sunday, April 26th. Prior to sharing the 3 ways to foster your life experience, I dive into what the words fostering and experience mean for models of understanding as to why these 3 ways benefit improving one's experiences. At the end of the speech, I guided the audience through a meditation. The audio for the meditation is on the following episode by itself. Thank you for listening.
Everyone, to our adult education virtual event. We wish we could have done this in person, but obviously we can't right now. But we're so happy to have Solomon Berezin here with us. Solomon's a certified transformational nutritional coach. And I think what he has to say today is very timely due to our pandemic that we're going through right now. So thank you, Solomon, for doing this. And I'll turn it over to Solomon.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And for anyone that will join in, we'll either catch them up or they can ask questions. I think we'll keep everyone muted. And if you have a question, though, either turn your video on and wave at me, or you can just unmute it. Otherwise, we'll keep questions for the end. So I'd like to start really first out, kind of explain the structure and where the journey, in a sense, of our conversation, where we'll start and where we'll go, so you can really get a better idea of these 3 ways to help foster your life experience. And I'll start with what my background in is, how I really shifted the direction of where I wanted to go in my life, and what led me to really dive more into understanding more about health and mindset and psychology and spirituality and all that gamut of stuff. And so the background that I studied is Institute of Transformational Nutrition. And beyond just studying maybe nutrition and how the foods that we eat interact in our body, which is also very important and we'll touch on the end, we have to understand that on one level is can be also looked at as just a surface level treatment, not the actual core of helping shift a mindset and changing a whole outlook and perspective on life. And that's really what the certification covers. It redefines nutrition as what feeds you not only physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And what really got me into it, that eventually led me to that certification, was when I was considering going back to graduate school and playing a final year of basketball. I was really considering what was it about basketball that I loved so much, and beyond just the dribbling of the ball, shooting the basket, passing to the teammates, there's something more, something deeper that I really felt called to. And what kept popping up, the more and more I meditated, in a sense, on it and contemplated on it, was this idea of this state of flow. And to explain that, I'll share also a story that I recently heard this week from a good friend and a piano teacher. Has anyone heard of Wynton Marsalis? Perhaps, maybe, yeah, Rabbi has. Well, I really wasn't too up to knowledge with jazz players, but he's one of the best jazz players of all time. and he was performing at this concert in 2002, and he was showcasing this ballad of this song called "I Don't Stand a Chance with You," and everybody was there listening, and he was playing so wonderfully, and how he drastically wrenches the creative expression. And when he gets to finally reaches the climax, and he gets to the final part of the song, the "I don't stand a ghost of a chance," and then right as he's about to finish, somebody's phone goes off, and the ringtone, the room fell silent, and it actually caused him to stop playing. The person whose phone went off, quickly ran out of the hallway, and everybody started talking again. It's like almost the concert is ruined. And at that moment, Wynton Marsalis himself could have got up, stormed out of the room, or done something else. But what he did instead is he paused, he looked around, and he started playing the beat of the cell phone on his trumpet. And then slowly, as people were still chattering, but they slowly brought their attention back, and he reversed, kind of like a detour in a sense, and he used that as a way to return back to where he was and finish the song "With You." And the teacher was telling me, and I later looked up on an article, that the ovation the ovation was tremendous. And even more so than if he were to play, perfectly from beginning to end. It's you can't imagine or anticipate something like this. And the events like these arise throughout our life daily, many, many times a day. From, I would say, the morning of our life, the morning of our day, to when we go to bed. Now, that's really what the flow state that I feel is such a drawn, and feel that and believe that we all are moving towards a time when we can really live in that, every single one of us, and as a collective. Now, take that to really understand why is the title of the conversation 3 ways to foster your life experience. It's not, I didn't title it 3 ways to make your life better or 3 ways to improve your life. So I really want to dive into a little bit about your experience, what experience means and what foster means, so that we can shine perhaps a new perspective on what these 3 ways I'll get to towards the end, how they can benefit your experience of life. Which now, as I'll dive into experience, what we have, like I was saying, these different situations that arise daily, or that we put ourselves into, that there's an event, and then we have a response, and we have an outcome. You can even look at it, I was reading in a book by Jack Canfield, as an equation. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And what that really consists of, if you look into experience, I think that really dives into, it depends on our personality. And our personality, you can break down, as I read from a great neuroscientist and great teacher, worldwide teacher. I don't really know how to describe him. He does many things, but he's also a best-time-selling author, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Your personality really creates your personal reality, and that consists of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. How you think, how you act, and how you feel. And so our experience, based on something, let's say somebody cuts us off on the way to work. It's easy, our thoughts can arise, that person is a jerk, or that person is doing this, and interrupting my flow of the day. And we can begin to arise in thoughts that develop anger, feelings of anger, and actions that then lead us to driving, with our hands grasped so tightly around our wheel that, that whole time you're so aroused. Now, stress, to point out that kind of stress on a short term isn't a bad thing at all. Even preparing for a speech like this, there's a level of stress, but it's more of like a pressure. It's a good thing, and you can change the thoughts and the feelings you have around it. So it's, rather than fearing the unknown, as many of us have experiences with, how, like we're also going through right now, or experiencing right now, we don't exactly know when we're going to, I don't want to say the word return, because it's more so like we're in a new state, but to go to where businesses are working again, and we can go to restaurants and see people. And excuse me. And from there we can either have a fear and really kind of worry, when is everything going to go back? Or we can really be curious, what more can I learn from this? When is this going to end? When are we going to join with people again, immerse and hug each other, and all the different things that your imagination and my imagination can come up with as far as the activities we'll get to. And I would say that really encompasses our experience, because it's really how you're perceiving that experience that you're having. And a lot of that also depends on models of understanding. There's this wonderful talk from Mind Valley. It's a company that really transforms education, and where they teach not just things we might learn in school, but how to improve, your fitness, as well as your mental state, and learning things such as meditation, or even new ways to approach finances. There's a whole vast array of things that they'll teach, and teaching it in unfamiliar new ways. And now I want to dive into really models of understanding to understand how we can shift and expand our experience in these different situations throughout life. And what that means is we have a certain level of understanding of how we think the world works, and whether it's how we get a job, how we get a relationship, how we make decisions, how we lose weight, how we improve our health overall. So if somebody were to mention, I'd really like to lose 10 pounds in, a month, a very, very reasonable goal. Very reasonable, I'd say, actually. And they think, I just got to go work out. But that's their only focus is very convergent on that one possibility, which will help. However, we really need to look at various other aspects of one's life that will probably not only help lose that 10 pounds, but your whole, you'll feel better. You'll show up in your relationships better. You'll perform better at work. That's all congruent with this idea of the flow. So then when something happens, like the same kind of, God forbid, car accident, or from that degree of higher degree of something unfortunate that arises, to something perhaps a little inconvenient, like a flight getting delayed or showing up late to work, the response to it is a lot more calm, a lot more trusting and surrendering, and really having a belief that, things usually work out better than I'd imagine. And that's something we can also apply towards this experience that we're going through now. And back to the example with losing weight, there's also other approaches to make it more of a divergent focus. You can see that perhaps adding things that I'll mention towards the end, such as meditation, how to decrease stress, what kind of food am I putting in my body, how am I moving throughout the day, how are my relationships. Those are just a few of many other ways that can actually help benefits one life and decrease weight. I would say that the goal of losing weight would actually become a side effect or a side bonus of just improving one's overall outlook and perspective and experience of life. Now, as we're getting close to about 20 minutes or so, all that I would say is cumulative and really sets a foundation to be able to understand these three ways. And these three ways that I'd like to explain are tools of transcendence, which is number one I'll get to. And I call tools of transcendence to really dive in. The majority of the conversation will be a little bit about meditation. However, there's other kind of tools in there that I'll mention briefly. And the second way would be mindset. So that's really the behavioral psychology, the kind of the mental models, and creating an alternate reality, an alternate story of an event that arose, and just shifting your mind to perceive it a different way, which will have drastic effects, if not immediately, in a short amount of time on your overall state of being and health. And then, of course, physical health, such as tips like fasting and what the benefits from fasting are, and different food, and looking at and having a different perspective on food and different types of food that actually can compound the effect from these other ways. I like to see it kind of as each way as a note, but when you press all three, it really makes a chord, and it really adds benefit and music and more not melody, but what's the word? The melody and the word's not coming from me, but the kind of adds the oomph part of it. The accompaniment. Thank you. And all of them together, it really stacks on the odds to then improve overall this and foster this life experience. So what I'll dive into first is these tools of transcendence and really meditation. And it's also going to be really kind of in order on how to really approach the day. So it's like the first thing I'll do in the morning after drinking some water is sit down and do a meditation. And there are various types of meditation, and that's why I call it a tool. We have various tools in the toolbox. You don't grab the same one every day. Maybe you can work on one to help improve a certain aspect, or to nail in wood. But overall, there's these different tools that benefit life as a whole. And the reason meditation really benefits really complements and supports, making these behavioral psychological changes and perceiving life differently, being able to change the perspective on how you respond to an event, is because if you're doing the first thing in the morning or sometime throughout the day, in meditation you're closing your eyes. You're either listening to something or you're not, or you're doing it in the quiet or the silence. And it's really, the reason it works is because it's closing out sensory information, other other internal or external information coming in. Because at any given moment, you have information, whether it's coming in through your senses of your eyes, your touch, your ears, your dog barking, you're outside walking, or various things, or the television on, our sensations. All of that is coming in and receiving, and there's billions of potentials that you could be paying attention to at any given moment. So by closing our eyes and focusing really internally on and paying attention, as we'll get to in the meditation, on the thoughts that may arise and where they're coming from, and the sensations that arise on the body, that over time we begin to notice patterns that are where our thoughts may come from. If you look at it like on a tree trunk, which is ourself, and then we have these different branches that lead off to mini branches and leaves, and we have these different leaves that arise every day, but they may be attached to other kind of smaller branches and larger branches, and ultimately down to the core or to the root, in order to really trace, where does that thought come from? Why is my reaction almost instantly when somebody knocks me off balance? That's a very victim mindset, by the way. But when something arises that way, that seems to push me out of my direction, why is my instant reaction so, I just want to push him or fight him? So with the meditation, it really slows things down. You're taking time out of your day to really just pause, kind of like what we're experiencing here again, this whole global epidemic, and you're pausing, and you're not entertaining any thoughts that arise. Sure, you can here and there and see, because lots of times ideas may come up, pleasant ideas, unpleasant thoughts that arise, but what we're simply doing is like watching clouds or watching cars come by on the street. You're just noticing it, and allowing it to simply pass away. And over time, or over practice, one begins to notice a pattern, like I mentioned earlier, to be able to now then change the equation inside of that root or that cell, to then respond differently to situations, and just overall change or foster the experience to be more calm, to be more ready to serve others, to help oneself, which is essentially, if you believe that we're all one in one unity, it's the same thing. And there's also tons of research, tons of benefits that I could touch upon with meditation, but I really wanted to shine more on why I believe that works. And another big tool I would say that complements meditation for myself is journaling. And there's various ways you can journal as well. It seems journaling can be a little intimidating, just looking at a blank page or writing something out, and it can be challenging to put a pen down and just write whatever's in one's head. But it helps with noticing certain thoughts that then manifest on the body, or give me a sense of feeling that makes me want to clench up or makes someone feel anxious. I can put it on paper and see it for what it is, and then really start to question, now, is that true? Whatever that thought is. And for example, I'm scared to write, I'm scared to give this speech. Now if I put it onto paper, then I can really start to question and get out of the analytical mind to really reframe that perspective. And at the end, if you have questions, I'd love to to share many different recommendations depending on, beginner level, intermediate, advanced, what kind of meditations or even journaling to look more into. Then the second way I'd really like to touch on is this idea of mindset. And mindset includes kind of like the placebo. Many people may have heard several times. A lot of this information is becoming very prevalent these days. And I really want to shine a light on also with making decisions and having this change in mindset. That's also a big benefit from part of meditation is looking at how to make decisions in different ways, be open to different ways to solve a situation. There's this wonderful book I read by Pam Grote, E Squared. It's a very phenomenal simple read that really dives more into meditation and intentions and different information like that really explains, what our conscious brain, what our mind was designed for. And if we also look into evolutionary psychology, which I won't touch on too much right now, what parts of the brain were developed first and what's only now beginning to, or starting to, relatively speaking, become more, to arise more in our awareness. And the conscious mind was really designed for two things: to identify problems and to formulate goals, as she mentions. And a lot of us, we have this whether for different situations and different people, different things that we begin to think so much. How do I solve it this way or this way? Or, we begin to overanalyze things. And by shifting this mindset, we can, as she also mentions in the book, it's like mowing the lawn with toenail clippers rather than use it for what it's actually used for. Put it back in the medicine cabinet and find a new tool, update or encourage the growth of other ways that will help improve the effect of whatever you're trying to solve, whatever the situation are. And part of mindset and like the placebo effect is really understanding that how much of an influence that it really has on shifting on belief. There's also a very phenomenal book called the name isn't coming to me, but it's the Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Excellent book that really dives into what beliefs are, and on the cellular level. He's a cellular biologist, and there are also various studies about where they would have patients where they would some patients, they would have like similar injuries, I think something in the knee or on the leg, and they would put into different groups. On one group, they would perform a surgery, and on another group, they would put the group under anesthesia, but they wouldn't actually perform the surgery. However, at the end, they would show both groups a video of them. Here's you getting this surgery, etc. And the effects were miraculous in the sense that both the groups, the group that actually got the surgery did well and began walking, and then the other group actually had the similar, if not the same, recovery. So it's with that tool, there's also various examples, such as just reframing. Another quick one I'll share is from his TED Talk by Dr. I think it's Alia Crum. It's back in 2014. But she was sharing how they did a research experiment with hotel housekeepers and showing them how to view their work. They asked them beforehand, do you feel like you get good exercise? And they measured them on different markers such as weight, blood pressure, body fat, and their satisfaction level of the job. And to their amazement, these ladies are working throughout the day, cleaning room to room, pushing the vacuum, cleaning the windows. It's a lot of physical movements going on, but they didn't believe that they were working out. So instead they showed them, well, actually, when you're vacuuming here, you're losing this amount of calories. And they showed them a lot more of ways to reframe that actually they are getting benefit. They are working out and exceeding the level of, recommended exercise per day. And they checked after, I don't remember how many weeks or months, but their weight, their blood pressure, their body fat went down, their satisfaction even increased, and all they did is really shift how they viewed their work. That's mindset. Now, on this, lastly, I'd like to touch on physical health. Now, one thing that I found very interesting is the more I was practicing meditation and would learn like at a meditation retreat, and with mindset started to question like, do I really need to work out so much or eat so much food because it's an external thing. However, I do believe it is also a big complement to these other ways that really shift and stack odds in a sense to overall improve the experience and how you respond to situations and show up and be in this state of flow. And so there are some physical things I'd like to touch on a little bit here. I know we're coming close to where we'll get to the meditation. My friend that I connected with through this certification I did has a very, very great supplement guide that dives into, his name is Craig McCluskey, and it's honestly just as great as many well-known doctors or health coaches, and it really dives into certain types of foods or supplements that really can have a nice effect and benefit on the body. Some things that I'll touch on, a few that you may have not heard before or would like some more information on, such as medicinal mushrooms. Usually when it comes to mushrooms, we think of either culinary mushrooms or all the way on the other side of the spectrum, the psychedelics. But there's a whole vast array in between that really can have a lot of benefits on the body, the gut, the brain, how the body takes the information and stores it. That then leads to, having more energy, thinking a lot clearer. So there's one such as the chaga mushroom you might find interesting and look into. That's when it's extracted dually from a water extraction and alcohol. It can have nearly like 54 times, I think, as strong of an effect than blueberries, antioxidants. And it's just a huge immune system booster. There's also some that in the evening, such like a reishi mushroom, which is has great adaptogenic properties that really just helps. For me, I like it before bed. It really just kind of puts the body in kind of a just calmer kind of state and improves sleep latency, so it helps with going to sleep better. And there's many others. The last one I would say was probably one of my favorite is lion's mane mushroom, and they would they have studied it. It's been clinically proven to help like study patients with different TBIs or concussions, traumatic brain injuries, and it actually enhances the production of new neuro growth factor cells, which is essentially like miracle. It's like miracle growth for your brain. It helps create new connections. And again, those are just a few to touch on, really to shine a light and to begin looking more into these different kind of foods, as well as superfoods you may have heard of, that really you can add, that'll have such a great benefit for the body, and they stack. They have such a larger degree of antioxidants or protein per size of the weight that it has. Then there's also things I would highly recommend, like intermittent fasting, which is really good for more longevity, and it increases your secretion of the human growth hormone and contributes to the body composition, and by helping your fat loss and preservation of food. And there's plenty of studies and research on that as well, and different kind of fasting. Now I know we're kind of we began a little bit later, and I'd like to close up and kind of conclude. And to review, we have these different 3 ways. And before I explain the 3 ways, which is your meditation, your tools of transcendence, and your mindset, and really being able to perceive things differently, and also food and physical movement and intermittent fasting, all these 3 ways, and you may have heard different information about them or why it's good for you. So really what I started and put a majority of focus on is how they benefit one's way of fostering, which is really improving how they experience life, how they respond to situations, to really help maintain or focus being in this state of flow. So like Winton, when something arises that is very unanticipated, and that also happens various times throughout the day, we know how to respond more innovatively, more creatively, more calmly, collectedly, and coolly, that it doesn't faze us. Those different ebbs will rise, whether it's, a simple thing on the daily, or to a greater degree, God forbid, that arises. It's there. We learn from it, and we respond accordingly or appropriately to the best of our abilities, and really get back into playing our piece and joining the whole orchestra that God has put together. From there, I'd like to really thank everyone for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening. I hope this episode brought you some really great value. If you enjoyed any of these episodes or would like to hear more, please leave me a review on Apple or Anchor Podcast. I'm always looking out for topics to learn and talk about, gifts to share, and value to bring to us all. For more updates, please check out solomonezra.wixsite.com/Solomon Ezra. That's SOLOMONEZRA. That's where you can also sign up for newsletters, read about blogs, and hear my different podcasts. Take care.